culture has the potential to become a key source of sustained competitive advantage for an organization. Continue to invest in acquiring additional skills, especially in the domain of tech and data. To my mind, these are already becoming threshold levels of skills, irrespective of what industry or role you plan to pick up.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Vanessa Rose, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM, that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and a video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year, and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And today we have with us Sukhdeep Arora, Chief People Officer at Anarok Property Consultants Private Limited. He also specializes in HR tech, culture building, leadership development coaching, and much more. He holds a degree from a top-ranked Indian Institute of Management and has an impressive record of work experience in the HR space across multiple industries and organizations such as Infosys, Abort, and more. On the personal side, he is a fitness enthusiast and is currently dabbling in Latin dance forms. Welcome, Sukhdeep. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Equally thrilled to be here.
It's our pleasure. So, Sukhdeep, you've had quite an interesting journey so far, and we'd really like to know your story and how you came to be the Chief People Officer at Amazon.
Okay, let me try and do the shorter version. So basically from Chandigarh, I did my civil engineering from Thapa. Uh, I'm one of the few civil engineers who got campus placed. So worked in the construction industry for some time. And while I was working there, I realized there is more to explore. I had some of my friends from Thapa who joined Saudi IM, and they would tell me interesting stories about their management courses. And thus I decided to sort of pursue and that sort of started preparing for my entrance exams. And while I was preparing, coaching institute confirmed, which I think I'd already realized that I loved working with people. So they did some psychometric testing, and they said, look, you'll find success in HR if that's what you would want to pick up. So even while writing entrances, I was very focused on going to a college which would help me pursue HR. I landed Almondor, and the first year was very smooth because the standard year you have standard set of subjects that you're offered, so went well. Second year was a bit, a struggle because no one in my batch was interested to pick HR. I mean, in the second year, you have to select courses, select subjects in the field that you want to specialize in. And at my college, like any other college, I think, unless there are 5 people or unless there is a quorum, in my college it was 5 people, unless 5 people opt for a subject, the subject wasn't offered. And there were these 2 or 3 core subjects that no one, core subjects for HR that no one opted for. And I was left figuring out what to do. So I approached my, what they call PGP chairman, the head of the whole course. At that point in time, it was Dr. Kuldeep Singh. And I said, sir, look, I want to do HR, so you'll have to help me. And he was kind enough. He said, okay, if you can convince any professor to offer you these subjects, I'll consider that in your overall course breakup. And there was this Somnath Ghosh, who was a visiting faculty in those days, and a brilliant academician, and a research-oriented academician who also used to consult a lot, an idealist to an extent, I would say. So I approached him because it seemed like he was one of the guys who may help, and I approached him. And it took a lot of time to convince him because he said, look, the way these courses work is unless you have people to learn from. The pedagogy was like this in our college that you learn a lot more with people and your interactions with other class fellows more than from the teacher. I said, look, there's no one. So he finally agreed to pick one course and he says, if you get an A plus or an A, will I offer another subject? So he offered one, I got an A, and then he took another one. So it's all thanks to Dr. Kuldeep Singh and Professor Ghosh for really putting me on this interesting journey of an HR professional. I owe to them. From campus, I got placed in Torrent Pharmaceutical in Ahmedabad, worked in the corporate office for 6 months, and then they offered me an opportunity to join their R&D division and head HR there as a young guy. But it was the beginning of an excellent experience again. I got an excellent mentor called Dr. Dutt. He was a revered personality in the pharmaceutical industry, and he gave me a whole leeway, all the empowerment to put all those bubbling ideas that I had in my mind. Because you just out of college and there is so much that you learn and then you want to implement. So we did a lot of interesting things. And in those days, it was 2003, 2004 that I'm talking about. We put in a goal-based performance management system for the scientists, which was another challenge. We brought in a variable component to the compensation linked to performance, so on and so forth. So, well, a lot of deploying some of my theoretical learnings from my courses. By which time, one of my friends who was with Infosys referred my name to an internal IJP that Infosys had bought up, and I joined Infosys in Bangalore to head HR for one of their business verticals. This was the beginning of another university stint for me because Infosys was a university for HR professionals. Um, Best practices matured over a period of time, clubbed with technology and robust processes. I learned how to manage scale with a combination of all these. So it was a learning experience. And yet another friend in some time referred me.
And then yet another friend referred me to Aegon Religare Life Insurance. There was, Aegon and Religare had come together to set up a life insurance business in headquartered in Mumbai. And they needed someone with experience to help set HR systems, policies, and processes. So I joined. It was an exciting, new industry and new business. And I had this whole wealth of learning from Infosys that I used to, help put down their policy, handbook, their processes. And the second year, helped deploy Microsoft Dynamics. It was an HRIS solution in the second year. So I was doing this. I'm happy doing it. My earlier boss from Torrent had joined Abbott at the time, and he offered again a very interesting role. He said, we're going to acquire two organizations, Solvay Pharmaceuticals and Piramal's healthcare business. Why don't you come and help work on the integration process? And until then, I think I had done a large part of what an HR professional aspires to. Working on an integration piece was exciting. So I joined him at Abbott and led the Solvay integration from the HR standpoint. I also helped deploy SAP HR at Abbott. And while working with Abbott, I lost my dad. My mother was in North, and she wouldn't shift to Bombay. And thus, I was looking for an opportunity to move back to North. And JLL offered a very interesting role heading HR for the organization. This was my first position at the top of the HR function. And it was based in Gurgaon, so sort of a win-win. So I joined JLL, and amazing. I think one of my best experiences so far has been at JLL. I think the if I was to choose one significant learning from JLL was the importance of culture in an organization to build a strong business. Um, and Anuj Puri, he was the country head for JLL in India. He's known as the Infosys of real estate, very revered person. He moved to start Anarok, and when he approached, I just couldn't say no. I'd always, like everyone else, in awe with his leadership abilities, his business acumen, and above all, his humility. Um, I think the tipping point was the way he understands the role of HR in building a progressive business, and gives that importance. I think I just couldn't say no. So that's where we are today. Anarok is a prop tech organization. um, we offer technology solutions to the real estate industry, along with real estate consulting services. um, 2017 we started, and we've grown from 150 employees to 1500 employees and multiple businesses. So that's a little bit of my journey. I think I wanted to be a short version, but sort of still taking a lot of time. But I'll stop here and take more questions from you, Anissa.
No, thank you for that. That was really interesting. Like you always had this love for HR and you made sure you went and got it. Yeah, that was very
Yeah,
nice.
absolutely.
Yeah, so building up on what you just said about, organizational cultures, could you tell us more about the role of a culture in a successful people strategy and how do you go about building one?
Yeah, it's very close to my heart. Thanks for asking this one. I think culture has the potential to become a key source of sustained competitive advantage for an organization. Um, it's fudgy, and thus for a competitor to copy or imitate it is very difficult. Unlike a product, right? I mean, a product and a design, still can be copied. I mean, I learned in my pharmaceutical stint that you can copy a drug as well, as long as it's a generic. But culture, and especially in a services organization like ours, um, can become a source of advantage and a sustained source of competitive advantage because it's difficult to copy. From attracting top talent to getting huge benefits on productivity to channelizing creative designs, creative solutions to unmet customer needs. I think culture can do wonders. Um, uh, and how do you build it? I mean, it is, like I earlier said, soft, fudgy. So what does it really mean? I think it's that collective behavior of the organization, and if largely individual employees behave similarly across the organization, and if that behavior is progressive, is positive, one could call that as strong culture in the organization. And how do you get it? Three things. One is to articulate it really well and in plain, simple language for employees across the organization to have a similar or a standard understanding of what it means. At Anurag, for example, we wrote down, what we call values that constitute the culture. We involved people across levels and across geographies to articulate this, articulate our estimation of what culture should be in our organization. And we wrote down descriptors, behavioral statements uh, to help employees understand how will they demonstrate that they're living by this value. So we wrote it down. Second is to communicate, so that everyone knows that this is culture, and one will have to use multi channels, for communication, especially in today's age where the span of attention is decreasing. Newer generations, people hardly read emails, and thus how do you communicate? Again, at Anorak, the first thing that we did was we designed a workshop mode of cascading. We call it culture cascade only. We took real life examples and built cases. And what we do is in a workshop, we divide people into groups and then give them cases and then tell them to discuss. And that discussion brings about behaviors linked to that value. So each value has a case. And then through that workshop, through that discussion mode, we bring alive the value amongst people. And then this is just one part. We have videos. We use recent cases that may have happened in the organization, and we put them in a nice format. We say this is what happened. What should you do? Sort of a quiz, so that sort of engages an employee. It's not a plain simple email. The culture cascade session, by the way, is delivered by three senior most people. So I join, so the three people who take it, it's a longish sort of a session. So three people. Um, we have a very senior person who's run businesses in her past avatars, uh, spearheading the culture agenda. So it's a uh, another position only, not part of HR, and her designation is Chief Evangelist Culture. I mean, this itself sends out sort of a message in the organization how important it is and how important, how serious are we of this whole thing called culture. So she, I, and another colleague of mine, the three of us sort of deliver this session. And that's another point. This has to be championed by the top leadership. If it is not, then it will become sort of a tick in the box, soft, some words, not meaning anything. The third thing, so two things. One is articulate, second is communicate, and multi-pronged approach of how to communicate, and it has to be ongoing. So these workshops keep happening. We do it twice in every city. So 12, 14 cities that we have, in each city we do it twice, so that new joiners are sort of, we don't miss it out. And then anyone who's attended earlier can also is more than welcome to attend it again. And then those videos and emailers continue to happen. The third is to link this soft fudge thing with systems or processes, so that employees can feel it, that this culture finds expression in the organization, right? So, for example, at Eneroc, we do our rewards and recognition program. So anyone who demonstrates a value gets rewarded in front of the whole population. We've linked into a performance management system. So there is a 15% weightage on how have you demonstrated these values in the past 1 year. So the employee has to write, and then this goes as part of the overall annual of the employee. At promotions at a certain level and above, we consider demonstrated the values in the past few years that he or she has been with us before we promote him to that. So link it so that it becomes a hard sort of a metric for employees to understand that this is important. I think those are some of the things. It's pretty close to my heart. I can keep talking about culture, but I thought that's a bit of gist of it.
Yeah, so there's some really important points you made. I completely agree with you. Culture isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of a strategy. It has to be constantly worked on by everyone in the organization.
Very well said, Vanessa.
So let's move on to some of the hard stuff of HR now. So, what according to you is the role of people analytics and big data, especially when it comes to future possibilities in the workspace?
Again, a very pertinent question. I think are you just asking some very relevant questions? Um, I think, and research shows that organizations with mature people analytics, mature people data processes, or what they call dashboards, um, tend to be 30% more productive than their competitors. Real time live data available on key HR metrics. Okay, so I was saying that so far what data analytics was attempting to do was look at what has happened and analyze why did it happen, right? I mean, you analyze it, and where it is moving now is what will happen and how can we be prepared for a best outcome, and what they call it as predictive analytics. In HR, I remember recruitment and retention sort of became the first couple of areas that predictive analytics sort of found interest in hiring. For example, there are these softwares, AI applications which will help matching CVs with the job requirement and help cut down about 30 to 40% of a recruiter's time in shortlisting CVs. Um, what's now happening on the hiring side, for example, is feeding in your current performance data and behavior, so that whole culture thingy, your hardcore performance metrics and behavior data into the recruitment process, to say, hey, this is what has made people successful in the organization, and feeding it in, and then helping hire the best talent for the organization, right? In retention, for example, a lot of predictive analytics has found expression. They would sort of run some kind of a program on how an employee is behaving, especially your key talent, and what are the chances that the key talent will move, and then helps managers to take proactive actions to maybe design solutions to retain key talent. Where all of this is now finding more utility is in, for example, learning and development, from tracking progress and impact of learning efforts of an organization and making it available to employees. I think what's now happening is these programs are helping design customized learning trajectories for every employee, depending on what's the history, what's the aspiration, what's the potential, and then putting it all together from various data sources to say, hey, this is what, or giving an option to the employee saying this is what an employee then chooses and makes his or her own learning trajectory. To we often hear this predicting talent requirement, skill requirement, what we call skill gap, trying to find what's the gap, what do you have today, what will you require in times to come, and then making it available to decision makers, HR heads, or business managers. On performance management, I've seen the systems breaking down performance into very meaningful and measurable actions, and then helping them track these live and then make it available transparently to all stakeholders. So whether it's the employee or the manager or the head of business, at the same time saying how is performance happening, and in a way so that everyone understands this is how I am and can take corrective actions immediately. Um, Yeah, so those are some of the things that I can think of. In current pandemic times, I think I've seen a lot of other stuff that's coming up. For example, health metrics. So they're looking at information from, for example, your medical insurance and stuff like that, and predicting the health of an employee and helping employee to take proactive actions. For any eventuality. Um, Helping measure productivity versus activity tracking. So, work from home is happening, and everyone's sort of trying to figure out whether work from home is really working for that organization or not. And they're trying to figure out how do you measure. And, traditionally we've been measuring activities, or we've been tracking activities. This happened or this doesn't happen. So they're saying, are there better ways to understand whether the employee is productive or not? Let's move away from activity and measure productivity, and thus build trust, both for the employee and the organization, saying, look, we trust the employee is productive, and even working from home is working. Or, say which roles are productive and which are not, and thus help the organization understand what will be the workspace requirement in the future. Which roles will you require? What skills will you require? Which of those can work from home and be productive, and which will not? And thus, what's the workspace requirement? Amazing. I mean, so yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question. Uh, those are some of my thoughts on people analytics and data.
Yeah, yeah, it's so amazing to see how far HR has come with the help of technology, like things we would have never imagined before.
Yeah, and it's sort of uh, um, getting HR people to move away from transactional routine sort of work and focusing on more value adding strategic business partnering role. It's also laying demand on those HR professionals to say, hey, move away from your transactional skills and acquire skills to really partner with business, become a coach, become a counsel, become a mentor, help managers understand performance and measure performance and productivity. So and so forth. So yes, technology is really helped the HR function.
Yeah, it's actually leaving the grunt up to a machine completely now. So, given the global health crisis that we are in currently, what would your advice be to recent graduates and freshers trying their luck in the job market?
Yeah, I think it's a little tough time for at least this year for people who just coming out of campuses. Um, okay, so some universal advice, which I think doesn't even sort of it doesn't matter whether it's current times or future. I've always believed look for learning opportunities and not necessarily the financial aspect, at least when you're starting your career. Second is, I think, learn to work with ambiguity. Today's times, I think, is VUCA to the power VUCA is that crazy time that we have. The ambiguity is going to stay. It's not going to go away. I mean, whether we get a vaccine, how soon we get a vaccine, and soon COVID goes away. But I think we've come to realize that you will continue to have chaos and ambiguity. Sort of it could be less or more, but it's going to be there. So learn to work with ambiguity. Um, I think the other thing is um, continue to invest in acquiring additional skills, especially in the domain of tech and data. To my mind, these are already becoming threshold levels of skills, irrespective of what industry or role you plan to pick up. These skills are sort of, like yesterday when we were interviewing people, will say how presentable is the person, how convincing or how articulate is the person, can he speak good English or not. I think the interviews have moved to subject and how badly the world needs this today. And maybe then consider sectors like renewable energy or waste management, um, at least for some part of your career. Consider working for some of these sectors. I think the learning will really be value adding for your career. Um, another thing that I continue anyone who asks me is be an entrepreneur at the core. Whether you're running your own business or you're working for a big corporate, own your P&L, as I say it. Um, give more than what you incurred on yourself. Earn profit, which is there has to be value, there has to be more giving back than what you put. And finally, I think again a universal advice: invest in your well-being, physical, mental, financial. They have to start from these. Maybe spiritual well-being maybe can come in a little later, but the other three are very.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sukhdeep, for some wonderful advice. And thank you so much for giving us your time and your insights. I really had a great conversation with you.
Thank you, Vanessa. It was a delight to interact with you, and all the best to to People Hum for their endeavors in the coming times, and look forward to interacting with you and your team in future as well. All the best.
Thank you so much, Sukhdeep.